Only 5 Agathians remain!
Nerd. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Nerd Culture once again. I'm your host for this wonderful video. You decided to click on Travis Troller. And today, you can probably tell from the title, we're going to be talking about the new game that released, Chivalry 2. Now, if you don't know, Chivalry 2 is a 2021 multiplayer hack and slash action video game developed by TornBanner Studios, and it was published by Tripwire Interactive. This game obviously is the sequel to the first installment, which is Chivalry Medieval Warfare, that was made in 2012. Now personally, this review is just going to be going over what this game is, how it looks, how it plays, and my personal opinion. It's going to be somewhat in depth, but there's probably going to be things that I miss, so I'll get it out of the way now. If there is anything I do miss, make sure to put it down in the comments and let me know. I'd love to talk to you guys about it, and let me know how you feel about the game. And also, of course, while you're here, make sure to subscribe to Nerd Culture as well so you can get more content like this. But without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. First, let's start off with the graphics. All in all, if I'm going to round it up here, I'm going to say that the graphics aren't really that bad. I've played worse looking games, and this is definitely not one of them. The settings are pretty crisp and moderately clean. It kind of sucks that the maps that you're given, there's only like 3 or 4, so it does get a little repetitive visual wise. But I think overall with those settings, the lighting is decent, the textures are pretty good, and if you're someone like me who's playing on PC, you can really bump those up a little bit. The one thing this game really has going for it is the blood and the gore, which is pretty damn realistic. I mean, you can do anything from literally slicing off someone's head or cutting off their arm. I feel that the character motion, the animation in this game, it's not bad. I do find at times it is a little weird, and by that I mean it kind of has a gliding sort of feel when moving around, especially when going into these long drawn out battles where you're kind of hitting and then deflecting, and no matter what you seem to do, it seems that you always tend to miss even though you feel like you were right next to the guy. But it's a learning curve for this game, and it's just something you have to get used to. But when you do get it down, it is oh so satisfying. Especially when you want to light a massive group of people on fire, which you can do in this game. I'll talk about that in a little bit later, but oh my god. The payoff is pretty damn decent, I do say so myself. And with the character customization, there is somewhat of a long list here. It's not as in-depth as, say, games like Fallout or Skyrim where you can really go in and like fine-tune someone's physical features and whatnot. You're not going to have the chance to make a fully created your style character. It kind of just starts with some basic facial presets and hairstyles and only a few colors to pick from. But from there, you can do things like battle-worn looks like dirt on the face or war paint or even scars or blemishes. There's a decent variety there, but it's still kind of just pick and choose from the couple of options you have and then run with it. And any other normal person might deduct points for the fact that there's somewhat of a lack of customization. You want to go more in depth, but really who cares, because you're going to be wearing a helmet most of the time anyway, so you're not even going to see your face. Now in this game, you have 4 classes to pick from. Let's start off with that. That's going to be Vanguard, Knight, Footman, and Archer. And I swear to God, if you're an archer, I think you're a coward and I hate you. I'm just saying it now. And of course, with each one of these categories, you have to gain experience in order to unlock certain visual options, which means you really have to put in a long amount of playtime in order to unlock that really cool, dazzling armor you see at the bottom of the list. I know which ones you're talking about because I want them too. And with the leveling up, personally, I feel it's not bad, especially when starting out. I feel like it picks up pretty quickly, but it does get slow at times when you really start to get into the game, especially when you're getting slaughtered, and trust me, that will happen a lot in this game. So if you're someone who's hot-tempered like I am, brace yourself, because it's going to get rough. But overall, I think the game is fair enough, despite my gripes with it. And also, the game rewards you with in-game currency. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh no, in-game currency, they want more money from me. I just bought the game. Why the hell do I gotta spend more? No, not even. Yes, you can buy more in-game currency with real-world currency. That's obviously in there, but the fantastic thing I found about this game is when playing and kind of grinding and leveling up in experience, you also do get rewarded pretty well with a somewhat reasonable amount of in-game currency. So I found I was never really pressured into actually buying with my own real money more in-game currency. My goals set for trying to get certain weapons or certain sets of armor were completely achievable through just playing the game, but the fact that they keep it in and they make the game in such a wonderful way that you don't even have to really think about it, it's not an overshadowing addition to the game, is a fantastic thing to see. So major points to Chivalry for that. And also, you can consider this a good or a bad thing. I'm voting for good, but weapons and armor, they're just aesthetics. There's no specific perks or upgrades with weapons and armor that you pick, which is good because I think if you're starting out for the first time, you don't want to get thrown into a game where everybody's got higher level gear than you, and that completely puts you at a disadvantage. So more points there. But with that being said, now let's jump into the gameplay. Now, there's a lot of information here, so bear with me. I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. I'm probably going to miss some key points, but again, let me know what I miss. Now with the gameplay, you have 3 different game modes. There's 2 game modes that are objective-based games, where it's 60v60 teams or 40v40 teams. And in these game modes, you're either defending or attacking, obviously, and with that comes a certain set of challenges. For instance, if you're attacking, you do a variety of tasks, such as pushing the battering ram up to the main gates of the castle in order to break in, to burning the supplies into the village in order to advance. Every section of these game modes are pretty well balanced, and I feel they keep you closely knit to the area you need to be in pretty well. There are a few moments when I feel that the defending team kind of has more of an advantage because they have more guarding them, while we attackers are left out in the open. But really, I guess it just comes down to how determined and how smart your players are. And also, personally, I like objective-based gameplay because it gives me, again, another goal to shoot for. I'm not just mindlessly running around and killing. And if that is your type of gameplay, then you're in luck because there's also a free-for-all mode. Oh my God, this free-for-all mode. You will not live long. I don't care how much you play the game, how good you are, you will get ganged up on because everybody is out and bloodthirsty for the kill. That's not to say it isn't fun, but you do have to be mentally prepared when going into that. Now, going into battle, there's a couple things to consider. First of all, the classes I mentioned earlier. Each of these 4 classes have 3 subsections to choose from, and I'm going to go over those now. The first one being Vanguard. This is a class where you're swinging heavy and you're swinging hard, hoping to clear just massive groups of dudes. The subclasses that go with this class are Brute, Raider, and Ambusher. And you also have special abilities for this class, such as the Trumpet, which will heal all close by allies, Quiver to restock your own personal ammo like throwables, and speaking of which, you also have an Oil Pot, which is a fire throwable. So if you're somebody who likes to watch the world burn,
some men just want to watch the world burn,
this is probably the guy for you. The other one is Knight, who has a larger health pool, and it's perfect personally for beginners just starting out because they have a mixture of a sword and a shield, so you have a larger variety of technique that you can use in order to get a good feel for the game. And in their subclasses, you have Officer, Guardian, and Crusader, with the special abilities of the Oil Pot, Trumpet, and Banner. Banner also heals allies as well. Then you got the Footman, who is kind of declared the jack of all trades and is more of a support class. He's basically there to take the pressure off your fellow teammates and give aid when he can. The subclasses are Poleman, Man-at-Arms, and Field Engineer. Special abilities being Bandage Kit, which you can throw at allies, or what I sometimes personally do when I'm in a pinch, is throw it on the ground and then pick it up for yourself. Oh, and on that note, keep in mind with the objective-based game modes, you're allowed 1 bandage for every life, which heals you to 100%, but it is slow and it does take time. So make sure when you're using it, do not be around other enemies and keep your distance for a couple seconds. There are plenty of supply crates that are located all around the maps. So if you've already used up your bandages, most likely you'll run into another supply crate and you can just restock, heal up again, and then push forward. And then last but not least, Archers. Oh boy, Archers. Obviously they're considered damage from afar, but with the lowest health. Don't see how that part is completely true, because the amount of times I would run up on an archer who's hit me countless amounts and they just don't seem to die is downright frustrating, but it says it. They also have specials in their classes that allow them to charge faster when you're getting headshots, so if you're an accurate shooter, this probably is the class for you, unfortunately. They have subclasses of Longbowman, Crossbowman, and Skirmisher. Special abilities being Brazier, which means you can light your arrows on fire, Banner to heal allies, and Quiver to restock. Quiver is seen in a couple of the other classes I mentioned, but it's most useful here since you need the most ammo out of anybody. Now keep in mind, if you do find yourself wanting to play as an archer, there is only a limited amount allowed for each team when playing this game, so you might want to pick it quick. Now with all this being listed, I have to establish that within those subsections of each class, you have different weapon setups. And how the progression I think goes, I could be wrong, is you play as that class for that subsection in order to level up to get those weapons within that subclass. This kind of gets lost in translation a little bit because when you're at the main menu going through the customization, you see all these weapon slots and options, and you do kind of have to do a little bit of sorting through mid-game with picking your classes in order to find the subclass you're looking for. It's kind of a guessing game in my personal opinion. Maybe there's something I'm missing. Again, let me know down in the comments, but it's not 100% confusing. But the fantastic thing about it is this game really gives you a wide variety of weapons to choose from, and with that comes different tactics and fighting styles that you have to consider. Speaking of fighting styles, the game does come with a tutorial that it makes you play at the beginning, and I highly recommend you play it, because it is really intuitive, easy to understand, and wasn't really hard to jump into the fight right after I was done. I was kind of worried and had doubts at first when purchasing this game that I was going to jump in getting really excited and then just realizing basic motions and movements would be way too hard and complex to control. The tutorial is going to take you through the basics obviously, and it's going to make you practice with things like light and heavy attacks. Of course, light are going to be quicker attacks and heavy are going to be stronger and longer attacks, so you really want to time those out. And you really want to get those down because you will find people will heavy attack spam a lot in this game in order to get a kill. And it surprisingly works, like an irritating amount. But with that, you also have the basic swing attacks that are going from side to side, to a poke, which is a forward lunging attack straight to the enemy's body, and an overhead strike, which I feel is a great finisher to your combo and does a lot of damage, especially when going for the head. Note, go for the head in this game. If you want to get damage, go for the head. Self-explanatory. And then of course you have things like block, which you can do whether you have a shield or not, but you really do have to be accurate with it. And by that I mean, if an enemy is attacking you, you really have to be looking at their weapon as it comes in and pressing the block button in order to successfully block that attack. Which is why I recommend that even though this game does have a first person and a third person mode, I would recommend the first person. Yes, it's probably a little bit more disorienting and you can't see people sneaking up behind you, which happens a lot, but you're granted accuracy in the end and it might make you survive a little longer. At least for me it did. But personally, I think the hardest part is timing your attacks because again, like I said earlier, people like to just spam the heavy attack. And it can be rage-inducing, but in those moments I came to find that you just gotta allow them to hit you and wait for those moments when they really rev up that swing and then go in for a light and just throw them completely off their balance. And speaking of which, there's also a melee button, which is like a Spartan kick to their chest, which is useful at times because it can throw somebody off and cancel out their attacks, but I find it's like a 50-50 gamble, but when it works, it works. Obviously, every weapon's gonna have a different set of range. They say they have different speeds as well, but I don't really think that's the case. I personally found that the speed it took to swing a spear to swinging a sword was damn near similar, so I wouldn't focus too much on that. And with that, you're going to be introduced to more hardships like being able to time your attacks, and also judging your distance is a big thing in this game. You have to really calculate how far you are away from an enemy and what your reach is, so that way you can out-time them and hit them before they hit you, which is key in this game. If you can get first hit, you stand a decent chance. It's not guaranteed every time, but it helps. I think the main goal is just throw the enemy that you're fighting off their rhythm, so that way they leave an opening and you can go in for the strike. Oh, and make sure when you go for the kill to go for it quick. Because the amount of times you're fighting in a 1v1, you get a couple hits in and you almost have them, and then miraculously, out of nowhere, 5 to 6 enemies will show up to aid their team player. Yeah, you're gonna have to get used to that. When I'm finally rewarded with a smart play that allows me to kill the enemy in a miraculous way, the payoff is just fantastic. And if you really want to make sure you're going to survive the longest, when you see a mosh pit of dudes, stand behind your friends and just poke over them at the enemy. It doesn't work all the time, but when it does, yeah. And speaking of which, obviously it's a multiplayer game, so you can play with other people and friends. This part is still a little iffy because I found that connecting to my other friends to play with kind of caused a little bit of a headache. I would try to invite them and it wouldn't go through, and then vice versa, and it would always end up with either one or both of us having to restart our games completely, but then it would work. Little speed bumps here and there, but I feel with the coming months, they are going to polish it up and they will make it a little bit better. The company has mentioned that they are trying to make this cross-platform. They just weren't really concerned about it on the release of the game. If you're a player who's on console but you want to play with your friends who are on PC, that time is unfortunately not here, but it is coming. So if you want to hold out, totally up to you. But all in all, Chivalry 2 is a fast-paced, chaotic, rage-inducing, but addictive and fun, replayable, wonderful, joyous game that I'd probably recommend to anybody, including my friends. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you for tuning in and watching Nerd Culture once again. This is Nerdy Gamer. Make sure to leave a like, comment down below, and as always, subscribe to the channel if you're not already so you can get more content like this the second it comes out. Oh, and if you want to see my rage moments firsthand or see any of the other members of Nerd Culture playing some video games, make sure to check us out on Twitch at It's Nerd Culture. Hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.